Do you see that little girl sitting under that old tree every day? The dirty girl, people say she's dangerous, that she talks to invisible spirits. They even call her a witch, nobody goes near her. Then why do the birds, dogs, and even injured animals always gather around? I don't know, but I have a strange feeling that girl is hiding something the whole world is about to discover. Sometimes, the people everyone fears are the very ones sent to change someone's life.
In the heart of Lagos Island, a busy city park bustled with life. Street vendors shouted to attract customers. Children chased one another around flower beds, and workers on lunch break sat under the shade of trees. Amidst this lively scene was a small figure who remained apart from the crowd. Evie, a young homeless girl, sat quietly under an ancient mango tree at the edge of the park. Her clothes were dirty and worn, and her face was smudged with dust. She looked strange to the passers-by, a skinny girl with unkempt curly hair and solemn brown eyes that seemed to see a world beyond the park. People usually avoided Evie. Whenever she wandered near, adults would pull their children away protectively. Some would mutter under their breath, "That girl is not normal," as they hurried past. Others would simply pretend she wasn't there at all. Over time, Evie learned to keep to herself in her little corner beneath the mango tree. She watched the world from a distance, observing the colorful hustle of Lagos Island without being truly part of it. Though she was alone among people, Evie was not truly lonely. She often talked to herself in soft whispers as she sat with her back against the tree trunk. The truth was that Evie wasn't talking to herself at all. She was speaking to the spirit of nature that only she could sense. In the gentle rustle of leaves above, she heard comforting voices. In the breeze that caressed her skin, she felt the soothing presence of old friends. Birds hopped near her feet, chirping as if in conversation. Small squirrels would sometimes scamper down the tree to sniff at her, sensing she was kind. One late afternoon, the sun cast long golden rays across the park. Evie carefully unwrapped a piece of stale bread she had saved from the day before. Instead of eating it all, she crumbled half the bread and scattered it on the ground. A flock of pigeons fluttered down eagerly to peck at the crumbs. Evie smiled faintly as the birds gathered around her. "Eat, my friends," she whispered. Her voice was gentle and warm, with the cadence of someone much older. The pigeons cooed happily, not afraid of the girl that others feared. To them, she was a source of kindness. As Evie fed the birds, two little boys playing nearby took notice. They stood at a safe distance, whispering to each other and pointing. One of them boldly picked up a small stone and flung it in her direction. The stone landed near her bare feet, startling the pigeons into flight. Evie winced but did not retaliate. Instead, she lowered her eyes and softly said under her breath, "Please don't hurt me." Her words were barely audible, lost in the rustling of leaves above. The boys giggled nervously. They had heard the rumors from adults. Evie was a witch. She talked to unseen spirits and animals, which to them proved she must be cursed. Encouraged by each other, the children picked up another handful of pebbles. Before they could throw them, a large crow suddenly swooped down from the tree, cawing loudly. It darted so close to the boys' heads that they yelped in surprise and stumbled back. Dropping the pebbles, the boys turned and ran off, their game forgotten. The crow alighted on a low branch above Evie and tilted its head as if checking on her. "Thank you," Evie whispered to the crow with a small smile. She recognized it as one of the birds that frequented the park, perhaps a friend sent by the spirits of nature to watch over her. The crow cawed softly in response and stayed perched protectively nearby. Evie drew her knees up to her chest and watched the sun inch lower on the horizon. She was used to such encounters. People feared her for reasons she couldn't fully understand. Ever since she could remember, Evie had been different. As a little girl back in her hometown of Benin City, Evie often sensed things others could not. The feelings of trees, the quiet murmurs of the wind. Her own parents were gone. She had lost them early, though the memories were hazy. A kindly old grandmother had taken her in for a time. It was grandmother who first told Evie that she had a special gift passed down through her bloodline. Grandmother often said that Evie's great-grandmother was a healer, known in her village for curing the sick with herbs and a touch of her hands. But such gifts, grandmother warned, were often misunderstood. When grandmother died a few years ago, the little girl Evie had nowhere safe to go. Other relatives turned her away, frightened by the odd things that seemed to happen around her. At barely 10 years old, Evie found herself alone. She remembered boarding a noisy bus bound for Lagos, the biggest city she'd ever heard of, hoping to disappear into the crowds. And disappear she did, into the streets, the markets, and finally this park where she now lived under the open sky. Now she was perhaps 12 or 13 years old. She wasn't exactly sure of her age. The days and nights had blurred together in her struggle to survive. Despite the hardship, Evie tried to use her gift quietly whenever she could. Once, she found a small bird with a broken wing and gently cradled it in her palms, humming an ancient lullaby her grandmother taught her. She felt warmth flow from her hands into the fragile creature. The next morning, the bird flew away as if it had never been injured. Another time, one of the street dogs that wandered the park came to her limping with a thorn in her paw. Evie carefully removed the thorn and placed her hand over the paw, humming that same soothing chant under her breath. The dog's whine turned to a grateful bark as it trotted off, healed and happy. Evie never tried to draw attention with these acts. If anyone approached while she was helping an animal, she would quickly stop, not wanting to be noticed. She remembered too well the angry faces of the people in her home village who called her witch when a neighbor's child recovered from a fever when Evie laid a hand on his forehead. She learned to be careful, to hide what she could do. The city was her refuge and the park was her tiny sanctuary, but even here, fear followed her. As darkness approached, people began to leave the park to head home. The vendors packed up their wares. The laughter of children faded as families departed. Soon, only a few stragglers and the park's nighttime security guard remained. Evie prepared for another night under the mango tree. She gathered some cardboard pieces and an old threadbare blanket that she kept hidden in the bushes. Spreading them on the ground, she made a small bed for herself among the roots of the tree. High above, the first stars blinked to life in the deep blue sky. Evie lay down and pulled the blanket over her thin body. She wasn't afraid of the dark. The chirping of crickets and the croaking of distant frogs were like a lullaby to her. The trees present above felt like a giant watching over its child. Evie placed a hand on the ground, feeling the faint hum of life in the soil, the comforting energy of the earth itself. With a sigh, she closed her eyes. Before sleep took her, she heard one last whisper in her mind, a gentle, wordless sound carried on the breeze that made the leaves overhead tremble ever so softly. To someone else, it would have been just the wind, but Evie knew it was the spirits of nature lulling her to sleep, assuring her that she was not alone. Clutching that thought to her heart, the homeless girl drifted into slumber under the old mango tree as the city around her settled into the night. Across town on that same morning, a wealthy businessman named Desmond Okafor woke up with a familiar heaviness in his heart. 2 years had passed since the accident, yet the pain in his chest felt as fresh as yesterday. Desmond lived in a grand house on Lagos Island, a sprawling home with high walls and beautiful gardens, a home that felt emptier than ever despite its luxury. His only child, Marina, had lost the use of her legs in a terrible car accident that took her mother's life and left Marina paralyzed from the waist down. Since that day, the cheerful laughter that once filled the halls of Desmond's home had fallen silent. That morning, Desmond stepped into his daughter's room to find her already awake. Marina, a delicate girl of 12, sat propped up against pillows on her bed. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, highlighting her soft, melancholic eyes. She was dressed in a clean yellow dress, and her dark hair was neatly braided, thanks to the nurse who helped care for her. Despite the bright day outside, Marina's expression was distant, as if she were lost somewhere far away in her thoughts. "Good morning, sunshine," Desmond said softly, forcing a smile onto his face. He remembered how Marina's mother always called her Sunshine because of the way she could light up a room with her grin. Marina turned her head and mustered a small smile for her father. "Good morning, Daddy," she replied quietly. Desmond came to sit on the edge of the bed. He gently took his daughter's hand in his. "How did you sleep?" he asked. Marina shrugged slightly. Okay, I guess, she answered. She didn't like to tell her father about the nightmares, memories of the car accident that still haunted her. In flashes, she would recall the screech of tires, her mother's scream, and then the terrible jolt. She remembered waking up in the hospital to the sight of her father crying and the realization that she could not move her legs. Those memories were too painful to share, so she kept them locked away behind a brave face. Desmond nodded and squeezed her hand. He wished he could lift all Marina's burdens and carry them himself. In the 2 years since the accident, he had spared no expense seeking a cure or treatment that might help her daughter walk again. The best doctors in Lagos and even specialists abroad had examined her. They all concluded that the spinal injury was severe. Surgery after surgery brought no improvement. Desperate for a miracle, Desmond had not stopped at conventional medicine. He had sought out traditional herbalists in distant villages and even invited priests to pray for her healing. Marina endured it all, patiently, hopeful at first, then slowly losing faith as each attempt failed. Lately, Desmond noticed her daughter rarely smiled. She rarely left her room except for hospital visits or therapy sessions that ended in disappointment. He longed to see her happy again, to hear her laugh. As he looked at Marina now, pale and quiet, he made a decision. If medical treatments could no longer help, perhaps what Marina needed today was simply a bit of joy. How about we go out today, he suggested. It's been a while since you got some fresh air. The weather is lovely. Maybe we could go to the park for a little while? Marina's eyes flickered with surprise. The park? She echoed. Yes, Desmond affirmed. We can go to that city park by the marina, the one with the fountain and all the flowers. You used to love feeding the ducks there, remember? A faint memory lit Marina's face. Before the accident, her mother often took her to that park to play. She would run around the fountain, chasing the pigeons, her mother laughing as she tried to catch them. Marina's lips curved up just a little. I remember, she said softly. I'd like that. Seeing that small smile was like seeing the sun break through clouds for Desmond. Wonderful, he said, patting her hand. I'll have Musa get the car ready. We can go in an hour after breakfast. Does that sound good? Marina nodded. Yes, Daddy. True to his word, Desmond had his driver, Musa, prepare the car. After helping Marina through her morning routine, the nurse and Desmond carefully transferred her into her lightweight wheelchair. Marina winced slightly as her legs, limp and thin from disuse, were moved, but she did not complain. Dressed in her yellow dress with a light cardigan, she looked like a little princess, albeit a sad one. The drive to the park was short. As the car navigated the busy streets of Lagos Island, Marina gazed out the window. She saw hawkers weaving between cars in traffic, holding up goods for sale, plantain chips, cold drinks, newspapers. She saw tall office buildings glinting in the sun and roadside stalls where traders called out to customers in sing-song voices. The vibrant energy of the city pressed against the car windows. It was a world moving on, busy and chaotic, and Marina felt both a part of it and apart from it. Since the accident, her world had shrunk to the size of their home and hospitals. The city outside felt almost new and overwhelming. Desmond watched his daughter carefully as they pulled up to the park entrance. He could see a spark of interest in her eyes as she observed a group of school children walking by in matching uniforms and a street artist setting up his paintings by the gate. Perhaps this outing was a good idea after all. Musa parked the car and came around to help. Gently, Desmond lifted Marina out of the car and placed her in the wheelchair waiting at the curb. Marina took a deep breath, savoring the warm, fresh air. The scent of blooming bougainvillea flowers and the distant brine of the lagoon mixed together. There was a faint sound of music from a radio somewhere, and the chatter of people relaxing on this pleasant afternoon. father and daughter entered the park, with Desmond pushing the wheelchair slowly along the paved pathway. The park was indeed lovely today. Hibiscus shrubs in red and pink bloom lined the paths, and tall palm trees swayed overhead. In the center of the park, a grand fountain gushed crystal water, children tossing coins into it for luck. Nearby, an artist offered to sketch portraits for passers-by, and an ice cream vendor's bell jingled as children tugged their parents toward the colorful cart. Marina watched all of this, her eyes widening at the simple joys she had forgotten. A little boy ran past with a kite trailing behind him. Two elderly men sat on a bench feeding bits of bread to a gathering of eager ducks at the pond. Life abounded everywhere she looked. For the first time in many months, Marina felt a hint of excitement. "Is everything okay?" Desmond asked softly as he leaned over her shoulder. Marina turned her head to smile at him. "Yes, I'm happy to be outside. Thank you, Daddy." Desmond felt tears prick his eyes at those words, but he blinked them away and smiled. "I'm happy too," he said. They found a shaded spot not far from the fountain and settled there. Desmond brought out a small bag of breadcrumbs he had asked the kitchen to prepare for Marina. He handed it to her, and she scattered a handful of crumbs on the ground. Immediately, a couple of pigeons and a bored little sparrow hopped over, pecking at the treat. Marina giggled softly as the sparrow hopped almost right up to her foot. It was the first time Desmond had heard even a hint of a laugh from her in ages, and it warmed his heart. He took out his phone and discreetly snapped a photo of Marina smiling at the birds, thinking he would treasure this moment. The peaceful scene of father and daughter in the park felt almost magical. Neither of them knew that something truly magical, something that would change their lives forever, was about to happen that very afternoon. Ivy awoke from a light nap that afternoon to the sound of laughter and the sight of golden sunlight filtering through the mango tree's leaves. It was unusual for her to nap during the day, but the warmth had made her drowsy. Rubbing her eyes, she noticed the park was livelier than usual. It was the weekend, and many families were out enjoying the fine weather. Balloons bobbed in the hands of children pestering parents for treats, and there was a cheerful buzz in the air. From her spot under the tree, Ivy observed a scene that caught her attention. Not far from the central fountain, a man was pushing a young girl in a wheelchair. The girl in the chair had a pretty yellow dress and braids. Ivy tilted her head, curious. The girl was smiling softly as she scattered breadcrumbs to birds, and the man, probably her father by the protective way he hovered, looked happy just watching her. Ivy felt a gentle nudge in her heart as she watched them. She could sense something that others could not, a faint aura around the girl in the wheelchair. It was as if the air shimmered differently around her legs, which lay still and lifeless. Ivy's gift let her feel the presence of pain and sorrow, and she felt both emanating from the girl and her father, despite their quiet smiles. As Ivy watched, a little sparrow hopped onto the girl's foot, pecking a crumb. The girl giggled, a delicate sound that made Ivy's own lips quirk up in a smile. It had been a long time since Ivy had heard someone near her age laugh with such innocent delight. But as sweet as the moment was, Ivy could also sense the undercurrent of sadness in the man's eyes when he looked at his daughter. That kind of sadness, a parent's helpless pain, was something Ivy had seen before. She closed her eyes briefly, extending her awareness outward. In the rustling of the grass and the whisper of the breeze, she sought guidance. The spirits of nature stirred, responding to her silent query. They seemed to tell her that fate had brought this father and daughter here for a reason. Ivy opened her eyes, resolution forming within her. She remembered her grandmother's words. "Your gift is meant to help those in need." Here, clearly, was a child in need and a father drowning in sorrow. While Ivy usually kept to herself, something tugged hard at her conscience now. She felt almost as if an unseen hand were urging her forward. Summoning her courage, Ivy rose to her feet and dusted off her tattered skirts. She took a deep breath and began walking toward the father and daughter. As she approached, a few people in the park took notice and began to murmur. Ivy was a familiar sight to regular park goers, a strange, dirty girl who spoke to birds and trees. A couple sitting on a nearby bench frowned, recognizing her. One of them muttered, "Isn't that the mad girl who sleeps under the tree? What's she doing?" Ivy's heart pounded in her chest, but she didn't turn back. Step by step, she neared the wheelchair where the girl and her father were. When she was just a few feet away, the man finally noticed her presence and looked up, startled. Desmond had been absorbed in his daughter's rare happiness, but the sudden hush of people around them and a shadow falling across them made him turn. He saw a thin young girl standing there, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. She was clearly one of the street children. Her dress was little more than rags, her feet were bare and dusty, and her hair an unruly halo around a thin face. Desmond's first instinct was concern for his daughter. Who was this child and what did she want? Was she a beggar? But there was something in the girl's eyes that gave him pause. An earnestness, almost a plea. Before Desmond could speak, Ivy addressed him quietly, her voice shaking a little. "Excuse me, sir," she said, eyes flicking to Marina and then back to him. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I can help her walk again." The words were so soft that Desmond almost thought he misheard. "What did you say?" he asked, brow furrowing. Ivy took a small step closer, desperation pushing her on. She could feel the weight of skeptical stares from the growing circle of bystanders, but she focused on the father and daughter. Speaking a bit louder, she repeated, "I can help your daughter. I can help her walk again." For a moment, there was stunned silence. Marina looked at Ivy with wide eyes, not sure what to think. Desmond, however, felt a flash of irritation and protectiveness. His grief and frustration over his daughter's condition had been exploited by charlatans and false hope. And here was a random girl, dirty and disheveled, claiming she could do what the best doctors and healers in the country could not. "That's enough," Desmond said, his tone sharper than he intended. He stood up straight, positioning himself slightly in front of Marina's wheelchair, as if to shield her. "I don't know what you want, but that's not a funny thing to say." He tried to remain polite, despite his anger, thinking perhaps this girl was mentally disturbed or trying to beg for money by concocting wild stories. By now, people nearby had stopped what they were doing to watch the scene. A heavy-set security guard who patrolled the park noticed the confrontation and began to walk over, eyeing Ivy suspiciously. Meanwhile, hushed whispers spread among the onlookers. "That's the witch girl," a fruit seller hissed to a customer as they craned their necks. "She wants to curse that poor child in the wheelchair," another woman gasped, pulling her own children behind her. "She's dangerous. Someone should stop her," a man muttered, remembering how he'd once seen Ivy calm a rabid stray dog, an act that he couldn't explain and thus feared. These fearful words grew into a soft chorus around them. Ivy heard some of it and it made her throat tighten with hurt. But she did not back away. Instead, she looked directly into Desmond's eyes. "Please, sir," she implored, her voice sincere. "I don't want anything from you, but I know I can help her. Just give me a chance, just a minute." Desmond felt a mix of emotions swirling in him. The murmurs from the crowd calling the girl a witch unsettled him. He had never been a superstitious man, but living in Nigeria, he was well aware of how seriously some took accusations of witchcraft. He looked at Evie's frail form and earnest face. She looked like a child herself, probably not much older than Marina. Could she really mean what she said? Before he could decide how to respond, the park security guard arrived. The guard was a tall, intimidating man in a crisp uniform. He had chased Evie away from sleeping on park benches many times before, and he regarded her now with a scowl. He stepped forward between Evie and Desmond, his hand already reaching out to grab the girl's arm. "You," he barked at Evie. "What are you doing here? Are you causing trouble again? Leave these people alone." Evie flinched as the guard's big hand clamped around her skinny arm. "I'm not causing trouble," she protested, trying to pull back, panic rising in her chest. "Please, I just want to help." Marina, who had been silently watching this exchange, felt a sudden pang of empathy. There was something in Evie's trembling voice and desperate eyes that struck her. While others saw a crazy street child, Marina saw a girl not much different in age from herself, a girl who seemed sincere and frightened. And she had said she could help her walk. Everyone always talked around Marina about her condition. Doctors talking to her father, therapists talking at her. But no one ever spoke directly to Marina, saying they could fix it, especially not with such conviction. "Daddy, wait," Marina said softly, reaching for her father's hand. Desmond, who was about to tell the guard to just gently remove Evie, paused and looked down at his daughter. Marina's gaze was on Evie, and there was a light of curiosity and hope in her eyes that he hadn't seen in a long time. "Let her try," Marina said louder this time, her voice steady despite the trembling in her heart. She looked up at her father. "Please, Daddy, just for a few seconds, let her try." Desmond was taken aback. "Marina, are you sure?" he asked. He feared giving his daughter false hope yet again. The last thing he wanted was to see her heartbreak deepen if this was some cruel trick or delusion. But Marina nodded. "I want to see what she can do. I have a feeling," she whispered, her eyes pleading. The crowd's murmuring grew louder. Some were shocked that the young girl in the wheelchair was entertaining the offer of the so-called witch. Others urged the guard to remove Evie quickly. The guard looked at Desmond for direction, still holding Evie's arm firmly. Desmond hesitated, his heart torn. He trusted doctors and science, not the supernatural. Yet his daughter's gaze on him was clear and insistent. Marina wanted this chance. Taking a deep breath, Desmond made a decision that would change all their lives. He raised a hand to the guard. "It's okay," he said. "Let her go." The guard blinked in surprise. "Sir, are you sure? This girl—" "Just for a minute," Desmond said, more firmly this time. He gently released Marina's hand and stepped forward. The guard reluctantly let go of Evie's arm, grumbling under his breath but obeying the wealthy man's command. Freed, Evie rubbed her arm where the guard had gripped it, but her eyes never left Desmond and Marina. "You said you can help her walk?" Desmond addressed Evie, his tone skeptical but no longer harsh. "We will give you 1 minute, but if you harm my daughter," his voice hardened, leaving the threat unspoken. Several onlookers moved closer in anticipation, forming a semicircle at a respectful distance. Evie nodded quickly. "I won't hurt you, sir, I promise. I just want to help." She carefully moved closer until she was right beside Marina's wheelchair. Marina looked up at Evie curiously. Up close, she could see the other girl's eyes were a warm brown and filled with an emotion she recognized. Hope. "What's your name?" Marina asked softly. "Evie," replied the homeless girl, offering a shy smile. "My name is Evie." "I'm Marina," said the girl in the wheelchair. "Okay, Evie, what do you want me to do?" Evie exhaled slowly. She noticed tears of anxiety brimming in the father's eyes and the tense way he held onto the wheelchair's handles. The crowd pressed a little nearer, a mix of fear and curiosity pulsing in the air. Evie dropped to her knees on the grass so that she was at the level of Marina's legs. She extended her hands towards the girl's thin, motionless legs, then paused and looked up at Marina and her father. "I'm going to sing something, an old song. It might sound strange, but please don't be afraid. And please, just believe." Marina swallowed and then gave a small nod. "All right," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Desmond said nothing, his jaw tight, watching every move. All around them, the park seemed to hold its breath as Evie began. Kneeling on the grass, Ivy placed her trembling hands gently on Marina's legs. Her palms barely touched the girl's knees, but at that contact, Ivy closed her eyes and began to hum softly. The tune that flowed from her was an ancient melody, a wordless chant passed down from her ancestors. It sounded like a lullaby carried on the wind, rising and falling with a soothing rhythm. At first, it was almost inaudible under the normal sounds of the park, but soon the air itself seemed to grow still to listen. Marina watched Ivy, her heart pounding. She felt uncertain and strangely calm at the same time. The girl kneeling before her seemed to change subtly as she hummed. The sunlight caught Ivy's skin and hair in a halo-like glow. Marina's father stood behind her, holding on to the wheelchair's handles tightly, his knuckles white. He wanted to pull his daughter away, but something kept him rooted to the spot, eyes fixed on the surreal sight unfolding. As Ivy's soft chant continued, a gentle breeze arose. It wasn't a normal breeze. It swirled around the small circle where Marina and Ivy were, rustling leaves on the ground and tugging lightly at clothing. The petals of nearby flowers quivered as if in anticipation. Some who watched swore later that they heard whispering in that wind, like a chorus of voices singing along with Ivy's melody. Ivy herself felt a familiar warmth flooding through her. It started in her chest, spread down her arms and into her hands. Her palms tingled against Marina's thin legs. She sensed the injury, the broken pathways inside the girl's spine that had cut off communication to her legs. In her mind's eye, Ivy saw it like a dark void, a river dammed and dried. With her gift, she channeled the warmth toward that void, willing life and energy to flow again. Marina gasped softly. A warmth was spreading through her legs, something she hadn't felt in them for 2 years. It was a comforting heat, not painful at all, more like when you sit by a fire on a cold night. She looked down at Ivy's hands on her. The homeless girl's eyes were closed tight in concentration, and a single tear was rolling down Ivy's cheek as she poured every ounce of her heart into the healing. Desmond could hardly breathe. He saw his daughter's face, Marina's eyes wide in wonder, her cheeks flushing with life. He saw the breeze picking up Ivy's ragged dress and Marina's skirt gently, swirling falling leaves around them in a small cyclone of green and gold. The skeptical part of his mind shouted that this couldn't be real, it couldn't be happening. But another part, the part of him that had wished for miracles on every shooting star and every prayer for 2 long years, was holding its breath in hope. All around, the park fell into a hush. Conversations died down. The ice cream vendor's bell stopped ringing. Even the birds seemed to quiet. People watched with rapt attention, some edging closer despite their fear, drawn by the mesmerizing scene. The old security guard stood with eyes round, forgetting his duty to intervene. After what felt like both an eternity and only a second, Ivy's humming came to a gentle stop. The breeze settled, the leaves drifting back to the ground. Ivy opened her eyes and lifted her hands away from Marina's legs. She swayed slightly, suddenly exhausted. Healing always took a lot out of her, but she kept her focus on Marina. "Try now," Ivy whispered, voice hoarse. "Try to move your legs." Marina's heart skipped. Was it possible? That warmth was still there, lingering in her thighs and knees like an encouraging embrace. She hadn't been able to move anything below her waist since the accident, no matter how much she tried or how hard she cried. She took a shaky breath, and under the expectant gaze of her father, Ivy, and dozens of onlookers, she thought, "Move." For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, I felt something, Marina exclaimed suddenly. Her toes. She had felt a twitch in her toes. She wasn't sure if they actually moved, but she felt them for the first time in ages. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Desmond dropped to one knee beside his daughter, hardly daring to believe. "Marina, what is it?" he asked, his voice trembling. Marina concentrated harder, tears springing to her eyes. She willed her left foot to move like she used to when playing soccer in school, willed her right foot to follow as it did when she danced around the living room. And in response, ever so slowly, her feet began to shift. "Daddy, look!" she cried out in joy. One brown sandal fell off her foot as her toes wiggled, really wiggled on their own. Then her right leg gave a small kick forward, as if awakening from a long sleep. Gasps of astonishment came from the circle of bystanders. "She moved her leg," someone whispered loudly. "I saw it." Desmond was frozen, eyes glued to his daughter's legs, afraid that if he blinked, this miracle would vanish. But it was real. He saw her toes wiggle, he saw her leg move. A sob burst from his chest. "Marina, you're moving," he stammered. A brilliant smile broke across Marina's face, sunlight in human form. "I can feel them, Daddy. My legs, I can feel them," she said, laughing and crying all at once. She reached down with shaky hands and touched her knees, confirming they were truly part of her again. Behind her, Desmond had to hold on to the wheelchair to steady himself, overcome with emotion. His little girl could feel her legs, something every expert said was impossible. Yet it was happening right before him. Evie let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Relief and happiness welled up inside her. It worked. Thank the spirit. It worked. She offered Marina an encouraging smile and nodded. "Stand up," she urged softly, though kindly. "You can do it." Marina looked at Evie in astonishment. Stand. She hadn't even dared dream of standing on her own again, but Evie's expression was confident and gentle, like a big sister coaxing a toddler to take first steps. Marina wiped her tear-streaked face and gave a hesitant nod. Her legs tingled with life, still weak but undeniably alive. Heart pounding like a drum, Marina placed her hands on the sides of her wheelchair and pushed down, attempting to lift herself. Her arms had grown strong over 2 years of using them to move around. Now, with a grunt of effort, she shifted her weight forward. One foot pressed against the ground, she could feel the solid earth beneath it. Then the other foot. Desmond instinctively reached out to support his daughter, fearing she might fall. He held her elbow gently, ready to catch her at any sign of weakness. Marina's legs trembled as she tried to straighten them. It was like trying to stand after ages of sitting, the muscles thin and unused. But she had sensation, she had control. Slowly, wobbling and clutching her father's arm, Marina arose from the wheelchair. First, she was half standing, half leaning. Desmond let out an astonished cry, tears streaming down his face. The crowd collectively gasped. A few cheers erupted spontaneously. "She's standing," someone shouted. "Praise God," an old woman exclaimed, covering her mouth. Marina, teeth gritted in concentration, pushed a little more until she was fully upright on her 2 feet. The world tilted dizzily for a second, but then she found balance, her father's steadying hand under her elbow. She was shaky, and the tops of her legs felt as shaky as jelly, but she was standing. Marina let out a cry of triumph and surprise. "I'm up! Daddy, I'm standing!" she cried, throwing her arms around her father's neck. Desmond embraced his daughter fiercely, overcome with emotion. "My baby, you're standing! You're standing!" he repeated, voice choked with sobs of joy. He held her as if afraid she might float away if he let go. Marina clung to him, tears of happiness soaking into his shirt, her body trembling from effort and excitement. People in the crowd erupted into applause and cheers at the miraculous sight. A few wiped tears from their own eyes. They had witnessed something truly extraordinary. A paralyzed girl who had been bound to a wheelchair was now on her feet, hugging her father and laughing through tears. Evie stayed kneeling on the ground, watching father and daughter with his soft smile. Her small chest heaved with exertion. She was tired, but the sight of Marina standing filled her with warmth. This moment, this pure happiness, was everything she had hoped for. Desmond pulled back slightly from Marina, still keeping a supporting arm around her waist. He turned his gaze to Evie, who was still kneeling on the grass. For a second, the two just looked at each other. The wealthy businessman with tears on his face, and the homeless girl who had given him a miracle. Desmond's lips parted as he tried to find words. Gratitude, amazement, disbelief, all swelled in his expression. "Evie," he began, voice unsteady. What could he possibly say to express the depth of thanks he felt? Thank you, God bless you." He almost reached to take her hand, but hesitated, aware of how fragile and exhausted she looked. Before he could continue, Marina, still leaning against her father, added fervently, "Thank you, Evie. I'll never forget this. You gave me my legs back." Her eyes shone with grateful tears. Evie shook her head softly, overwhelmed by the thanks. "I'm so happy you're okay," she said softly. She wanted to say more, that she should continue to exercise her legs gently, that the healing might leave her a bit weak for a while, but Evie suddenly felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. Using her gift at such intensity always drained her energy. Seeing Evie wobble, Desmond swiftly moved forward and put a hand on her shoulder to steady her. "Careful," he said, concern on his face. Evie looked up at him and he realized she was just a child too, thin and probably hungry and exhausted. A rush of protectiveness mixed with his gratitude. By now, the joyous commotion had fully broken out. People were clapping and some were shouting congratulations to the father and daughter or offering up prayers of thanks. A few bolder souls came near, wanting to see the girl who had performed the miracle. For a brief moment, amid the excitement and celebration, it seemed that everyone had forgotten the earlier fear and accusations. All they saw was a miracle and the miracle worker in their midst. Desmond gently guided Evie to stand, noticing she swayed on her feet. Marina, still holding on to her father with one arm, reached out her other hand to touch Evie's. The two girls, one once crippled, one homeless and mysterious, shared a smile of understanding. It was a smile that spoke of hope and new beginnings. The murmurs swelled into angry shouts. A few men started moving towards Ivy, who recoiled and instinctively stepped closer to Desmond and Marina. Desmond immediately positioned himself in front of Ivy and Marina, one arm holding his daughter, who still leaned on him, the other raised protectively towards Ivy. His heart, which had soared with elation seconds ago, now thundered with alarm. He couldn't believe how quickly the crowd's admiration turned to hostility. "Everyone, wait!" Desmond implored, trying to keep his voice calm yet authoritative. "There's no need for this. She just helped my daughter." But his words were drowned out by the growing commotion. The park security guard, regaining his wits, blew a whistle and tried to push through the throng, perhaps to restore order or perhaps to grab Ivy as some demanded. In the chaos, someone hurled a stone that whizzed past Ivy's shoulder. Another person lunged as if to catch hold of her. Ivy felt a surge of panic. She had known fear and rejection before, but never had she faced an angry mob. She stumbled back, breathing rapidly, eyes darting for an escape route. The accusatory faces around her blurred as tears sprang up. "Please, I didn't do anything wrong." In the shouting, Marina suddenly stepped forward from her father's side. Though her legs were weak, adrenaline and anger propelled her. She moved in front of Ivy, standing on her own shaky feet as a human shield. "Stop it!" Marina cried out, her young voice ringing through the air with surprising strength. The crowd's noise quieted just enough for her to be heard. People gaped at the sight. The girl who had been wheelchair-bound moments ago now stood unaided, fierce determination on her face. "She saved me!" Marina shouted, her voice cracking but resolute. "If she was evil, I would be dead. She helped me walk again. How can you call that evil?" Marina's words hung in the air. The mob's advance faltered. Some looked ashamed, others uncertain. The man who first yelled about witchcraft opened his mouth as if to argue, but no sound came out. The proof of the miracle was right in front of them. Marina standing and speaking on behalf of the very girl they wanted to harm. Desmond seized the moment of hesitation. "This child is under my protection," he said in a commanding tone he used in boardrooms, now fueled by anger. "He saved my daughter's life. Anyone who wants to hurt her will have to go through me first." He held Marina with one arm and drew Ivy to his side with the other, a formidable look in his eyes. The park security guard, now at the front of the crowd, raised his hands to calm people. He was torn. On one hand, many voices were calling Ivy a witch and demanding action. On the other, he had just witnessed a miracle and saw the influential Desmond Okafor defending the girl. The guard decided to err on the side of the powerful man who employed in the city. "All right, everyone, step back. Show's over. Let's disperse. Leave them alone." A tense silence followed. Then gradually the crowd began to break apart. A few still cast suspicious glances at Ivy, muttering under their breaths, but no one dared challenge Desmond or the guard further. Some of the onlookers, who were more sympathetic, came up quietly to pat Marina's shoulder or congratulate Desmond on her recovery. One elderly lady even reached out to touch Ivy's arm gently, her eyes wet. "Thank you, my dear, for helping the child," she said softly, offering a timid smile before hurrying away, fearful of drawing ire from others. Ivy managed a shaky nod at the woman, but was otherwise frozen in shock. Everything had happened so fast. The joy of healing Marina, then the terror of nearly being attacked. It left her trembling and pale. Desmond wasted no time. Keeping a protective arm around Ivy, he quickly guided both girls away from the center of the park. "Musa!" he called out as he spotted his driver, who had rushed over from the parking area when he saw the disturbance. The grey-haired driver jogged toward them, looking bewildered at the sight of Marina standing and Ivy at Desmond's side. "Sir, what? Miss Marina, you're..." Musa stammered, eyes wide at the sight of the once paralyzed girl standing, albeit with her father's support. "There's no time, Musa," Desmond said briskly. He was all business now, adrenaline pumping through him. "Bring the car around now. We're going to St. Mary's Hospital." Musa nodded vigorously and dashed off to get the car. Desmond turned his attention to Marina and Ivy. Marina leaned against him, her legs clearly getting weak now that the immediate rush had faded. Ivy stood silently, head bowed. Desmond realized she was probably terrified that he might still be angry with her or that she might be handed over to authorities. He gently lifted Ivy's chin with his hand, so she looked up at him. Her eyes were red from unshed tears. "Ivy, I owe you everything," Desmond said, his voice softening. "Thank you for what you did. I'm sorry people reacted that way, but I promise I will keep you safe now." Ivy searched his face, found only sincerity and gratitude there, and she nodded slowly. I'm just glad she can walk," Ivy said in a small voice, glancing at Marina. Marina managed a grin despite her exhaustion. "Ivy, you're amazing," she said. Her legs were trembling visibly now, and she finally let herself sink back into her wheelchair, which they had hastily grabbed as they left. Even as she sat, Marina kept a firm hold of Ivy's hand, not wanting her savior to feel alone. Moments later, Musa pulled the car up to the nearest park exit. Desmond quickly helped Marina into the back seat, folding the wheelchair and stowing it. Then he turned to Ivy, who stood uncertainly on the sidewalk. It was likely the first time she had ever been near a car like this up close, a sleek black sedan, polished and elegant. "Come, Ivy," Desmond said, guiding her by the shoulder. He opened the car door. Ivy hesitated, glancing down at her dirty dress and feet, before carefully sliding into the cool leather seat next to Marina. She had never been inside such a luxurious vehicle. She hardly dared to touch anything. Marina gave her an encouraging smile and kept holding her hand. As soon as Desmond was in and the doors shut, Musa sped off towards St. Mary's Hospital, a private medical facility not far from the park. Desmond's mind was racing. His daughter could walk again. This fact alone was overwhelming, but he was also deeply concerned about Ivy. How on earth did she perform such a miracle? Who was she really? And was she okay? He glanced back through the rearview mirror at the two girls. Marina was beaming, her eyes glued to Ivy as if her presence were the most fascinating thing in the world. Ivy, on the other hand, looked out of the window, her face a mix of wonder and apprehension as buildings whizzed by. He realized that for the first time in years, Marina looked truly happy, thanks to Ivy, and now he was determined to ensure that no harm would come to this extraordinary child. The car ride was quiet for a few minutes. Finally, Marina broke the silence. "Daddy," she said softly, "are we taking Ivy to the hospital because something's wrong?" Desmond turned slightly so he could address both girls. "I want a doctor to check on both of you," he explained. "You to make sure your legs are truly okay and to understand what happened. And Ivy to make sure she's not hurt or overly tired. She looked like she might faint back there." Ivy blinked. No one had ever taken her to a hospital out of concern for her well-being. Usually, she avoided hospitals for fear of being kicked out as a street urchin. "I'm all right," she murmured, though the truth was she felt utterly drained and a little dizzy. Still, she felt compelled to add, "You don't have to worry about me." "Nonsense, dear. I do have to worry. You saved Marina. You're my responsibility now, at least if you'll allow it." Ivy didn't quite understand what he meant by that, but she didn't argue. She was too tired and emotionally overwhelmed. She simply nodded and leaned back against the seat. Marina squeezed her hand, and Ivy found herself squeezing back gently as a faint smile played on her lips. As the car navigated through late afternoon traffic, Ivy's eyes grew heavy. Safe inside the vehicle, with cool air blowing from the vents and the rhythmic motion of the ride, she felt some of the adrenaline ebb away. Her body begged for rest. Before she knew it, she had drifted off, her head lolling to the side. Marina noticed and carefully guided Ivy's head to rest on her own shoulder so that the sleeping girl would be more comfortable. Desmond caught a glimpse of this in the mirror and felt a swell of affection and admiration for both girls. In a matter of hours, a stranger had gone from being an outcast, labeled a witch, to the savior of his daughter. And Marina, who had been so withdrawn, was now acting with confidence and compassion, defending Ivy and caring for her. Life truly was unpredictable. When they arrived at St. Mary's Hospital, Desmond gently woke Ivy. She sat up, momentarily disoriented, then remembered everything with a jolt. Marina was already being fussed over by nurses who had been alerted by Desmond's call on the way. A kind-faced doctor, Dr. Adeyemi, whom Desmond knew well, was waiting to examine Marina's legs. "Ivy, we're at the hospital," Desmond said softly. "Don't be afraid. This is a good hospital. They'll just make sure you're all right, okay?" Ivy nodded, trying to suppress the nervousness that bubbled up. Hospitals always gave her a little fright because of her past, but she trusted Desmond's gentle tone. Stepping out of the car, Ivy squinted at the bright light of the hospital's entrance. Marina was already being wheeled in, although she protested, saying she could try walking again. "In due time, young lady," Dr. Adeyemi chuckled. "First, we need to see what's going on with those legs of yours." Desmond had a nurse bring a second wheelchair for Ivy, seeing how unsteady on her feet she was after the ordeal. Ivy flushed with embarrassment at needing it, but allowed herself to be seated. Desmond stayed beside her, his presence reassuring. Inside, the cool, clean corridors of the hospital enveloped them. They were quickly escorted to a private examination room away from the busy emergency ward, a courtesy extended to Desmond as a generous patron of the hospital. Marina insisted that Ivy stay with her as long as possible, so the two girls ended up in the same room, sitting on adjacent beds, much to Marina's delight. It wasn't long before the medical examinations began. Marina was sent for scans, an MRI and X-rays to assess her spine and legs, while a pediatrician checked her reflexes. To everyone's astonishment, Marina could wiggle her toes on command and even lift her legs slightly off the bed. She was weak, but it was clear the paralysis had somehow been healed. The doctors were baffled and amazed. They kept asking for confirmation. "You say she's been paralyzed for 2 years, and now she just stood up this afternoon?" One neurologist questioned Desmond for the third time, hardly believing the reports. "Yes," Desmond affirmed for the third time, smiling as he said it. He didn't mind repeating it. It felt like recounting a wonderful dream. While Marina was being poked and prodded, which she took all with good humor, still riding the high of her regained mobility, other doctors examined Ivy. They checked her vital signs and drew a little blood for tests. Ivy sat quietly, enduring the unfamiliar experience of kind medical attention. A nurse brought her a cup of warm tea and some biscuits when she learnt the girl likely hadn't eaten properly in a while. Ivy devoured the biscuits gratefully, realizing only now how hungry she was. After a couple of hours, both girls were resting back in the room, the flurry of initial tests over. Evening had fallen, and Desmond stood by the window, speaking in low tones on the phone, likely telling a close family member or friend the unbelievable news about Marina, or perhaps dealing with work matters that he had pushed aside. In the room, Marina and Ivy chatted softly. Marina was sitting up in bed, legs stretched out under the blanket, marveling every so often as she wiggled her toes. She had insisted on sharing her snacks with Ivy, so both of them nibbled on chocolates someone had dropped off as a get-well gift. For Marina, the chocolate tasted sweeter than ever before. Everything felt new and joyous. For Ivy, it was perhaps one of the first times she'd eaten chocolate at all. "Do you feel okay?" Ivy asked quietly. Ivy nodded. "Just tired, but I feel fine." Marina reached over and squeezed her hand again. "I still can't believe what you did for me. How did you know you could fix my legs?" Evie looked down, a little shy. "I just felt it. When I saw you in the park, I could feel your pain and I don't know, something inside me said I could help. I've always been able to heal small things, cuts, bruises, little wounds on animals, but I never tried something this big before. I prayed it would work." "Well, it did," Marina said happily. "You have a gift, Evie." Evie bit her lip and admitted softly, "My grandmother always told me it was a gift from our ancestors, but many people, they think it's a curse. In Benin City, where I was born, some called my great-grandmother a witch because she could heal people when doctors failed. She had to hide her abilities." Marina frowned. "That's not right. It's not a curse. It's a blessing. You helped me when no one else could. People were just scared because they didn't understand." Evie offered a small grateful smile. "Thank you. You and your father are the first people who've been so kind to me in a long time." Marina was about to respond when the door opened and Dr. Adeyemi entered, accompanied by another doctor holding some files. Desmond hung up his phone and quickly joined them. Dr. Adeyemi cleared his throat, looking between Marina and Evie with an expression of amazement. "Well," he began, "I must say today has been full of surprises. Mr. Okafor, we have the results of some tests. Marina's scans show something unbelievable. Her spinal damage, it's healed completely. There's no other word for it. The scar tissue we expected to see is minimal, and there's new nervous tissue where her spinal injury was." Desmond shook his head in wonder. "That's incredible." Marina beamed. Hearing the confirmation made it all the more real. The other doctor stepped forward, adjusting his glasses as he looked at Evie. "And we did some preliminary tests on you, young lady. We are frankly astonished. We discovered that your body emits a very unusual bioelectrical field." Evie blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry? A what?" The doctor smiled kindly. "It means your body produces energy, electrical energy, in a way that normal people's do not. Everyone has tiny electrical impulses in their nerves, but yours are special. It's like you have an extra battery inside you. We think this might be what allows you to heal. When you are chanting and touching Marina, it's possible you somehow directed this energy into her, jump-starting the repair of her nerves." Dr. Adeyemi nodded. "I've read about rare cases of healers in medical literature, but I've never seen anything like this. It's not magic, as some might call it. It's a very special ability, perhaps passed down through your family's bloodline, as you said. A rare gift." Marina looked triumphantly at Evie. "See? A gift." Desmond let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He stepped closer to Evie's bedside. "Evie, Did you hear that? You truly have a remarkable gift. And please, know it is a gift. Don't let anyone make you feel it's something bad or scary. Evie felt tears prick her eyes again, but this time they were tears of relief and happiness. To hear doctors, men of science, validate what she could do without condemning her felt like a huge weight lifting off her shoulders. All those years of wondering if perhaps she was cursed or strange, and now here were people calling it special and a gift. She wiped her eyes and nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. Dr. Adeyemi continued, addressing Desmond. "We'd like to keep both girls overnight for observation, just to be safe. Especially Evie. We want to make sure the exertion did not cause her any harm. And Marina, of course, we need to monitor her as she regains strength." "Of course, whatever you need," Desmond agreed readily. He would have slept on the hospital floor if needed. He was not going anywhere. With that, the doctors left them to rest, though a nurse remained nearby on call. That night, after the doctors had finished their examinations and left the girls to rest, the hospital room grew quiet and peaceful. A dim lamp cast a gentle glow as Ivy and Marina lay in their adjacent beds. Marina had eventually fallen asleep, exhausted from the excitement and tests, her hand still loosely holding Ivy's. Ivy, however, remained awake for a while, staring at the ceiling and replaying the day's events in her mind. It hardly felt real. This morning she had woken up under a tree, and now she was in a comfortable bed with clean sheets, surrounded by people who cared about her. Her world had transformed in a matter of hours. Desmond sat in a chair between the two beds, unable to sleep himself. He kept watch over his daughter and the young girl who had saved her. Under the soft light, he noticed Ivy's eyes were still open. He cleared his throat gently so as not to startle her. "Ivy, are you okay?" he whispered. Ivy turned her head on the pillow to look at him. In the low light, her brown eyes looked very large and a bit uneasy. "Yes, I'm okay," she replied quietly. I can't sleep." "I'm not surprised," Desmond said with a gentle smile. "It's been a big day for all of us." For a moment, both of them were silent. Desmond struggled to find the right words for what he wanted to say. Finally, he spoke softly, careful not to wake Marina. "Ivy, I've been thinking about what happens next for you." Ivy's body tensed slightly. "What happens next?" she echoed, her voice barely audible. She hadn't thought beyond today either. She'd been living moment to moment for so long. Desmond leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Ivy, you heard the doctors. They confirmed what you can do is real and extraordinary. You have a gift, not a curse, and you used it to give me and my daughter a miracle." He paused, emotion thickening his voice. "I meant what I said in the car. I consider you my responsibility now, if you'll let me. You're only a child and you've been alone for too long." Ivy's heart thumped. She could sense he was building up to an important offer, something that felt almost too good to hope for. Desmond continued, "I would like you to come home with us when you're discharged from the hospital. I want to give you a safe place to live, as part of our family." He spoke slowly, gauging her reaction. "We have plenty of room at my house. You'd have your own bed, your own room, and you'd never have to worry about food or shelter again. I'll make sure you get an education, new clothes, anything you need. And if you're open to it, we can also arrange for some therapy or counseling just to help you deal with everything you've been through. You deserve a chance to heal too, Ivy." For a long moment, Ivy was silent. She searched Desmond's face for any hint of pity or obligation. All she saw was kindness and a hopeful sincerity. You would do all that for me?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Desmond nodded. "After what you've done for Marina, it's the least I can do. But even aside from that, no child should have to live on their own on the streets. You have so much potential. With some care and support, you could have a bright future. And he added gently, "I'd be honored to have you stay with us. Marina already adores you. I have a feeling we've all been brought together for a reason." Ivy felt tears well up in her eyes. She blinked quickly, letting them spill over. It wasn't sadness that made her cry, but overwhelming relief and gratitude. Ever since her grandmother died, Ivy had carried a lonely weight on her small shoulders. The constant fear of where she'd sleep, what she'd eat, and whether she'd ever belong anywhere. Now, in one offer, this kind man was lifting that burden from her shoulders. Seeing her tears, Desmond reached out and gently took her hand. "It's all right," he said softly. "You don't have to answer right away if you're unsure. I just want you to know the offer stands." Ivy shook her head, wiping her cheeks with her other hand. I want to," she managed to say, voice quivering with emotion. "I would like to stay with you, with your family." A timid smile crept onto her face. "Nobody has ever offered me something like that. Thank you, sir." Desmond squeezed her hand. "You can call me Uncle Desmond, or even just Desmond if you want. And you are very welcome, Ivy. Thank you for saying yes. You've made my day. No, my whole year, just by being willing to join our family." At the word family, Ivy's smile broadened, and she let out a small, joyous sob that she quickly stifled with her hand. Family. She had a family now. From the other bed came a sleepy voice. "Does this mean Ivy is coming home with us, Daddy?" Marina had woken, half aware, catching only the last part of the conversation. Desmond chuckled softly. "Yes, sweetheart. Go back to sleep. Everything's all right." Marina gave a content hum. "Yay," she murmured drowsily. "Best day ever." A second later, she had drifted off again, a smile on her lips. Ivy let out a quiet laugh, still sniffing back happy tears. "She really wants me to come," she said. "She certainly does," Desmond agreed. He leaned back in his chair, feeling a profound peace settle in his heart. So much had gone wrong in the past 2 years, but today, something had finally gone right in a way he never expected. "Get some sleep, Ivy," he said gently. "You have a big day tomorrow. We'll be taking you home." Home. The word sounded so sweet to Ivy that she repeated it in her head as she closed her eyes. Home. Not a park bench or a tree root, but a real home with a roof and walls and people who cared. She fell asleep holding Marina's hand, dreaming of a little yellow house with a garden, a place where she truly belonged. The next morning dawned bright and clear. By mid-morning, after a final round of checkups, the doctors were satisfied that Marina and Evie were stable and well enough to leave the hospital. The neurologist gave Marina some instructions for physical therapy exercises to strengthen her legs. After 2 years of not walking, she would need some time and help to fully regain her muscle strength. Desmond promised to hire a good physiotherapist to work with her. The doctors also advised that Evie get plenty of rest and nutritious food to recover her energy, and recommended counseling for her, given her years on the streets. Desmond took note of every suggestion, determined to follow through. When all the paperwork was done, Desmond brought a change of clothes for Marina from home. For Evie, the hospital's social services had managed to find some donated clothing, a simple cotton dress and sandals in roughly her size. Evie changed out of her dirty, torn dress from the day before and put on the fresh clothes. They were plain, but to her, they felt luxurious. She stepped out of the bathroom shyly, and Marina clapped her hands in delight. "Evie, you look great!" Evie blushed, smoothing the dress with her hands. It was the first new piece of clothing she had worn in years. "Thank you," she said softly. Desmond smiled warmly. It was amazing what a difference a bath, rest, and clean clothes made. Standing there, Evie looked like any other 12-year-old girl, though perhaps more slender than most due to past hunger. The shadows of death were gone from her skin, revealing a smooth, deep brown complexion. Her dark, curly hair had been washed and brushed out by a kind nurse, now tied into a neat ponytail. Only the old scars and healing scabs on her knees and feet hinted at her harsh past. She caught Desmond looking and shifted shyly. "You look lovely, Evie," he said kindly. Ready to go? Evie nodded eagerly. Yes, ready. Marina had insisted on using her wheelchair to leave the hospital, since her legs were still wobbly for long distances. But she kept standing up and taking a few steps every chance she got, proud to feel solid ground under her feet. A nurse accompanied them to the entrance, congratulating Marina once again on her recovery and patting Evie's shoulder with a grateful smile. Musa was waiting outside with the car. When he saw Ivy and Marina coming out with Desmond, he broke into a big grin. "Miss Marina, seeing you walk is a blessing I never thought I'd see," he exclaimed. Marina beamed at him, but even took a few careful steps forward so Musa could see her legs in action. "And young Madame Ivy," Musa added, tipping his cap respectfully to the cleaned-up girl he'd only known as a quiet passenger the day before. "Welcome, welcome. We are happy to have you." "Thank you, sir," Evie replied, a bit surprised by the driver's friendliness. It would take time to adjust to being treated with respect. The drive from the hospital to Desmond's house took about 15 minutes. As the car pulled through the busy streets, Evie gazed out the window in anticipation. They soon turned onto a quieter, tree-lined road on Lagos Island. Well-kept houses and manicured lawns indicated this was a wealthy neighborhood. Finally, they arrived at a tall gate which swung open automatically after Musa pressed a remote. Evie's eyes widened as they drove into the compound. Desmond's house was a beautiful two-story home, painted in a soft cream color with tall palm trees swaying in front and vibrant bougainvillea flowers climbing trellises along the walls. The driveway led to a carport by the entrance. As soon as the car stopped, a woman in a maid's uniform and a man in a security guard's outfit approached to help. They had been informed by phone that their boss was bringing a guest and that Miss Marina was miraculously walking again, though they scarcely believed it until they saw the girl stepping out of the car with their own eyes. Miss Marina, the maid, whose name was Ekaete, cried joyously. She had worked for the family since Marina was a baby and loved her dearly. She quickly came to Marina's side, tears of happiness in her eyes as she watched the girl stand and move. "Oh, thank heavens, welcome home, look at you." Marina gave her a hug. "Thank you, Auntie Eka," she said warmly. Ekaite then turned to Evie, curiosity and kindness on her face. Desmond introduced them. "Ekaite, this is Evie. She's going to be staying with us from now on. We owe her a great debt. She's the one who helped Marina." Ekaite's eyes grew wide. She had heard fragments from her employer's phone call earlier, something about a miracle, but now she understood. "You are very welcome, Evie," her voice full of awe. Without hesitation, the older woman pulled Evie into a gentle embrace. It startled Evie. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had hugged her. Slowly, she raised her arms to return the embrace, smiling timidly. "Thank you, Ma," Evie said politely, using the respectful term. She felt warmth radiating from the maid's genuine welcome. The security guard carried their bags, mostly Marina's things from the hospital, inside. Desmond led the way through the front door, and Evie stepped in, her breath catching. The interior of the house was spacious and elegantly furnished. A polished wooden staircase curved up to the second floor. The living room opened up with plush sofas, paintings on the walls, and a large television set. Fresh flowers in a vase filled the air with a light, sweet scent. To Evie, it was like walking into a palace. "This is your home now too, Ivy," Desmond said as he noticed her awe. "Feel free to explore. But first, let's get you settled in your room and let both of you rest." He guided her up the stairs, with Marina insisting on walking up slowly rather than being carried. At the top of the stairs, they went down a hallway. "This is Marina's room." Desmond pointed to a door decorated with stickers of butterflies and musical notes. "And right next to it is the guest room, which will be your room, Ivy. Unless you girls want to share, but I thought you might like your own space." "We can have sleepovers anytime anyway," giggled Marina, leaning on the wall as she took the last steps. It was clear her legs were tired now, and Desmond gently scooped her up to carry her the rest of the way, making Marina protest with a laugh. He pushed open the door to the guest room. Inside was a neatly made bed with lavender-colored sheets, a white wardrobe, and a small desk by the window. The afternoon sunlight streamed in, making the room bright and welcoming. There was a vase of flowers on the bedside table. Ekayete must have placed them there to welcome Ivy. Ivy walked in slowly, hardly believing this cozy space was for her. She gingerly sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the mattress sink softly under her weight. A real bed, just for her. "Do you like it?" Desmond asked. Ivy nodded at a loss for words. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "I've never had a room before." "Well, it's yours now," he said kindly. "We can decorate it however you like later on. Put up pictures or different colors, anything you want." Overwhelmed with gratitude, Ivy looked down at her hands. They were clean and bandaged where she had old cuts, but no longer caked in dirt. A tear of joy slipped down her cheek. "I don't know how to thank you, sir, Uncle Desmond," she said softly. "You don't need to thank me," Desmond replied, kneeling down to be at her eye level. "Having you here is a blessing to us. Just focus on resting and getting comfortable. This is your home." Marina, now sitting on her own bed next door but listening through the open door, chimed in. "Ivy, after we rest, can we play in the garden later? I want to show you my favorite spots." "Sure," Ivy replied, smiling. She still felt a little shy in this new environment, but Marina's enthusiasm was infectious. Desmond rose and patted Ivy's shoulder. "All right, girls, let's all take it easy for the rest of the day. Ekayete will bring up some lunch for you. If you need anything, just call for her or me. This evening, perhaps we'll all have dinner together and celebrate what today has brought us." As he left the room to get Marina settled, Ivy lay back on her new bed. The mattress was soft and clean, and the pillow cradled her head gently. She let out a long, content sigh. Only yesterday, she had braced herself to sleep on the hard ground beneath a tree. Now she had a roof over her, a door she could close for privacy, and the comforting sounds of a home around her. Footsteps in the hall, distant clatter from the kitchen, the hum of the air conditioner. For the first time in forever, Ivy felt truly safe. She whispered a thank you. Whether to God, the spirits of nature, or fate, she wasn't sure. All she knew was that kindness had found her in the most unexpected way, and she would never take it for granted. That evening, as promised, a small celebratory dinner was held. Desmond invited a close friend and his wife over, people who had prayed for Marina's recovery, and they wept with joy to see her walking around the dining room, albeit slowly. Ivy was introduced to them, and though she felt shy at first, they thanked her profusely and treated her like an honored guest. Around the table, laughter and happy conversation flowed. Ivy savored every bite of the jollof rice and grilled fish on her plate, the richest, most flavorful meal she had had in years. Marina sat beside her, positively glowing with happiness, clinking her glass of juice against Ivy's and declaring, "To new friends and miracles." "To new friends and miracles," everyone echoed. As Ivy looked around the smiling faces, her eyes lingered on Desmond's. He was beaming with pride and contentment, so different from the haunted, sorrowful man she had first seen at the park. She realized that not only had she helped Marina's body, she had healed a piece of both their hearts. In doing so, perhaps she had also begun to heal her own. Lived that night, Ivy curled up in her new bed, listening to the distant sound of crickets outside. Marina was asleep in the next room, and all was well and quiet. Ivy reflected on the sudden change in her fortunes. It felt almost like a dream, and yet it was real. She promised herself she would make the most of this second chance at life. She would study hard when she started school, be a good sister to Marina, and use her gift to help others whenever she could, just as her grandmother would have wanted. With that thought warming her heart, Ivy drifted into a peaceful sleep, the safest and most comfortable sleep she had in all her life. 1 year had passed since Evie came to live with Desmond and Marina. In that time, her life had transformed even more than she could have imagined. She was no longer the timid, dirty girl hiding under a mango tree, but a bright 13-year-old attending school, sleeping in a warm bed and surrounded by people who cared for her. The Okafor household truly became her family. Marina was like a sister, and the two were inseparable, whether studying together, playing in the garden, or giggling over teenage secrets in their shared late-night talks. Desmond, whom Evie now affectionately called Uncle Desmond, was a steady source of guidance and kindness, always ensuring she had everything she needed. Under this loving environment, Evie blossomed. She proved to be a quick learner at school, catching up on the years of education she had missed. Though she was a bit older than some classmates in her grade, her humility and gentle nature earned their friendship. Many at school knew she was the adopted daughter of the wealthy Mr. Okafor, but only Marina and a few trusted teachers knew of her special healing gift. At home, Evie continued to hone her ability in small ways. Sometimes, under Dr. Adeyemi's discreet supervision, she practiced channeling her bioelectric energy to heal minor injuries, like when Marina sprained her ankle during physical therapy, or when a neighbor's child had a deep cut. Each time Evie helped, she grew more confident and learned how to control the energy better so it wouldn't exhaust her as much. Despite her growing confidence, Evie and her new family remained cautious about whom to tell regarding her powers. The memory of the fearful mob in the park still lingered. Desmond often reminded her, "It's a wonderful gift, Evie, but not everyone in the world is ready to accept it. We will share it with others slowly, with care." Evie agreed. She wanted to use her abilities to help people, but she also didn't want to attract the kind of attention that could put her or her family in danger. However, fate had a way of presenting Evie with opportunities to do good. One such opportunity came on an afternoon when Desmond received a phone call from an old business partner named Mr. Peters. As Evie and Marina sat at the dining table doing their homework, they overheard Desmond's serious conversation in the study nearby. "Yes, I remember your son's accident. How is Chidi now?" Desmond's voice carried softly through the partially open door. There was a pause as he listened. "I'm so sorry. Still no improvement?" Another pause. I might know someone who can help, but it's very unorthodox." His tone was cautious. "No, it's not a doctor. Well, you recall my daughter's situation?" A longer silence followed. "Yes, the one I told you about, the miracle. It wasn't a priest or a new drug. It was a girl, a young girl who lives with us now. Her name is Evie." At that, both Evie and Marina exchanged looks across the table. Marina raised her eyebrows in a silent question, and Evie felt her heart quicken. Uncle Desmond was talking about her. Desmond continued in the other room. "I trust you, which is why I'm sharing this. Evie has a gift of healing, something beyond scientific explanation. She was the one who healed Marina. I haven't spoken about this to many people. Yes, exactly. People jump to conclusions about witchcraft, so we've been very careful." There was another pause, and then Desmond's voice softened compassionately. "I understand. As a father, I know how it feels to be desperate. If you want, we can arrange a quiet meeting. No promises, but if there's a chance Evie can help little Chidi walk again, I think we should try." By now, Marina had quietly moved to the study door with her crutches. She still used them for long distances as her legs continued to strengthen, and gently knocked. Desmond beckoned her in, not surprised to see both girls standing there because he had an inkling they were listening. He put the phone on hold and explained the situation. Mr. Peter's son, Chidi, was a 10-year-old boy who had been paralyzed from the waist down in a car accident about a year ago. Much like Marina's case, doctors had given little hope for him to ever walk again. Mr. Peters and his wife had heard a vague story through the grapevine about Marina's miraculous recovery, but hadn't dared to believe it. In his desperation, Mr. Peters had called Desmond, his trusted friend, to ask if there was any truth about the rumors. "Uncle Desmond, you know I'll help if I can," Evie said earnestly. Once he had finished, she felt a pang of empathy for Chidi. She remembered all too well Marina's sorrow during those wheelchair-bound years. "Marina, you helped me, and you've gotten even better at controlling your gift since then. Just do your best. Chidi and his parents will understand you are trying to help," Desmond added gently. "We'll explain to them that there are no guarantees. They are just grateful for a chance, and no matter what happens, we are proud of you for wanting to try." Thus, a secret meeting was arranged for the following weekend. To maintain privacy, Desmond invited Mr. and Mrs. Peters to bring Chidi to the Okafor home on a Saturday afternoon, when most of the household staff were off duty. Dr. Adeyemi was also invited, both to give a medical perspective and to be on hand in case anyone needed immediate care or reassurance. The plan was to attempt the healing in the quiet comfort of the living room without any outsiders knowing. When the day arrived, Eve prepared by spending the morning in quiet meditation under the backyard guava tree. It was something she had started doing to center herself. She would sit on the grass, close her eyes, and listen to the voices of nature, drawing in calm and positive energy. She whispered a few of the ancient Benin prayers her grandmother had taught her, asking her ancestors and the spirits of the earth to guide her hands for the good of this child. By late afternoon, the Peters family arrived. Mr. Peters was a tall man with worry lines etched deep on his forehead. His wife looked similarly anxious but hopeful. And there in a wheelchair was Chidi, a thin boy with big dark eyes and a shy smile. Despite his condition, he greeted Marina and Eve politely. Chidi's legs were strapped with supportive braces, and he looked frail, but he had an air of quiet courage about him. After some introductions and pleasantries that did little to mask the tension everyone felt, it was time to try. Desmond and his friend moved the coffee table aside to make space. Chidi's mother gently brushed her son's hair back and whispered, "Be brave, my boy, we love you," before stepping aside with her husband. Marina, standing by with her crutches, gave Chidi an encouraging nod and smile, which he returned nervously. Eve knelt on a soft mat in front of Chidi's wheelchair. The room was filled with a hushed silence, broken only by the rustling of tree branches outside and an occasional car passing by on the distant street. Dr. Adeyemi was also invited, both to give a medical perspective and to be on hand in case anyone needed immediate care or reassurance. The plan was to attempt the healing in the quiet comfort of the living room without any outsiders knowing. "Hello, Chidi," Eve said softly, smiling up at the boy. "My name is Eve. I'm going to try something that helped Marina. It won't hurt at all, I promise. Are you okay with that?" Chidi nodded. "Yes, ma," he replied quietly, using the respectful term for an older girl, even though Eve was only a few years ahead of him. "Daddy told me you have magic hands." Eve chuckled lightly. "Well, they're not magic, but I'll do my best." She glanced at his parents. "I'll begin now." Mr. and Mrs. Peters held on to each other's hands tightly. Desmond stood behind Eve, a supportive presence, while Marina looked on with an understanding smile, having been in Chidi's place. Eve closed her eyes and placed her hands gently on Chidi's legs, just above his knees. She began to hum her healing melody, the same one she'd used with Marina, but now even more controlled and resonant. The familiar warmth sparked to life within her, flowing down her arms. Eve had learned to visualize it as a golden current of light. She imagined that light entering Chidi's legs, seeking out the damage in her spinal cord and nerves, encouraging them to mend and reconnect. As the humming filled the living room, a gentle breeze from the open window stirred, fluttering the curtains. Chidi inhaled sharply. He felt a tingling warmth spreading through his lower body, something he hadn't felt since before his accident. His eyes widened in amazement. A calm stillness engulfed the room. The adults watched with bated breath, hearts pounding. Eve's face was serene, focused entirely on the task. Her braids gently swayed as the energy coursed through her. Several long minutes passed. Beads of sweat formed on Eve's brow, but she maintained the chant until she sensed the golden current had done all it could for now. Gradually, she let the melody taper off and opened her eyes. She lifted her hands from Chidi's legs, swaying slightly with fatigue, but Eve did not take her eyes off Chidi. Everyone seemed frozen, uncertain what to do or say. Chidi stared down at his own legs in disbelief, as if expecting something miraculous to happen. "Chidi, can you try to move your toes for me?" her mother asked softly, tears already brimming in her eyes. The boy hesitated. Then a look of concentration came over his face. A moment later, his sneaker-clad foot gave a small jerk. "I did it!" Chidi gasped. "Mama, did you see? My foot moved!" A cry of joy burst from Mrs. Peters. Mr. Peters nearly fell to his knees in relief. "Praise be to God," he whispered, voice choking, before rushing forward to clasp Ivy's hands. "Thank you! Oh, thank you!" Ivy managed a tired smile. "He is not fully healed yet," she cautioned gently. "It will take some time, and maybe another session or two, but the feeling should start coming back." Dr. Adeyemi was already beside Chidi, doing a quick reflex test, his face alight with scientific astonishment and delight. "Remarkable! There's definite improvement in sensation," he announced. Chidi, brimming with excitement, suddenly tried to push himself up from his wheelchair just as Marina had once done. "Slowly, son, slowly," Mr. Peters exclaimed, rushing to support him under one arm while Desmond moved to hold the other side. The boy's legs trembled and he didn't get fully upright, but both feet were now pressing on the ground, supporting a bit of weight. It was more than anyone had thought possible just minutes before. Tears and laughter mingled as Chidi's parents embraced their son and thanked Ivy over and over. Marina hugged Ivy in pride, mindful that her friend was now quite exhausted. Indeed, Ivy swayed with weariness, and Dr. Adeyemi quickly had her sit and drink some sweet fruit juice to restore her energy. That evening, after the Peters family departed, with heartfelt promises to return for follow-up healing sessions and offers of any reward, which Desmond politely declined, saying Ivy doesn't accept money for her gift, the household was quiet and reflective. Ivy rested on the sofa, leaning against Marina, while Desmond sat across from them, deep in thought. "That was incredibly brave and kind of you, Ivy," he finally said. "Word will spread from this, you know." "Yes," Dr. Adeyemi added. He had stayed for dinner and was sipping tea. The Peters are discreet people, but such miracles are hard to keep secret. Even if they don't speak openly, the change in Chidi will be noticed by others. They may come asking questions. Ivy exchanged a glance with Marina, then looked at Desmond. "Are you worried, Uncle?" Desmond sighed, rubbing his chin. "A little. I just want to make sure you are ready for whatever comes. People's reactions can be unpredictable. Some will be grateful, as we saw today. Others might not understand." Marina spoke up, her voice firm. "Anyone who sees what Ivy can do and still wants to call it evil is just ignorant, Daddy. We can handle them. We handled them before." Her fierce loyalty made Desmond smile. "You are right, and you shouldn't have to hide forever, Ivy. Maybe this is the start of something bigger. We can take it step by step. Only those truly in need and who are open-minded will be told for now." Ivy nodded. In her heart, she felt a stirring of purpose. Today had reminded her of how much joy her gift could bring. It was worth facing some fear and risk if it meant giving children like Chidi a chance to walk again. She said softly, "I'm ready. If there are others like Chidi, like Marina, and if I can help them, I want to. We'll just have to help people understand, slowly but surely, that this gift is a blessing, not a curse. Hearing her echo the very lesson of his own journey, Desmond felt a surge of pride. We will, my dear, together. The success with Chidi was indeed just the beginning. In the month that followed, word spread quietly among circles of parents and doctors about a gifted young healer in Lagos who could perform miracles. Desmond continued to carefully vet and arrange each meeting, making sure that those who came seeking help understood that Ivie was a child with a special ability, not a witch or a sorceress to be feared. With each successful healing, the whispers grew a bit louder, extending beyond their neighborhood, beyond Lagos Island and into other parts of the country. By the time Ivie was 16, she had helped dozens of children and even a few adults regain mobility. She never accepted a single naira for her help. Desmond's prosperity meant she never needed to, and in her heart, Ivie saw her gift as something to be given freely, a way to honor the ancestors and the kindness that had saved her own life. Instead, many grateful families whom she had helped would make donations to charity or bring her heartfelt gifts of food or handmade tokens of thanks. The Okafor home often had a stream of visitors coming to simply thank the young girl who had transformed their lives. Ivie's days became a blend of normal teenage life and extraordinary service. In the mornings, she still attended school, determined to graduate with good grades. She had grown into a poised and intelligent young woman. Some of her classmates eventually learned of her abilities, and having grown up alongside her, they accepted it as just another part of who Ivie was. Remarkable, yes, but nothing to run from. If anything, it made them protective of her, forming a loyal group of friends who would counter any whispers of witch with sharp reprimands about spreading nonsense. In the afternoons and on weekends, Ivie often held informal clinics at home. With Desmond's living room as a private haven, she would receive one family at a time. Sometimes the sessions were emotionally heavy, such as when an elderly man who hadn't walked in 5 years fell to his knees weeping after Ivie restored feeling to his legs. Other times they were pure joy, like when a little girl danced in delight only a week after Ivie's healing touch mended her spine. Dr. Adeyemi and a few other doctors became close collaborators, studying each case with respectful fascination, documenting the outcomes, and ensuring each patient also got conventional care to support their recovery. The attitudes of people continued to evolve. Many who might have once reacted with fear now saw Ivie as a blessing. In church on Sundays, the pastor would sometimes indirectly refer to those among us whom God has blessed with unique gifts to help others, and everyone knew he meant Ivie, no longer in condemnation, but in appreciation. Community leaders from various faiths came to meet her, and one even invited her to speak to a youth group about kindness and understanding, which she shyly did, emphasizing how important it was not to bully or shun people who are different. Her humble, soft-spoken nature in these appearances only endeared her more to those who had her. Of course, there were still a few who harbored doubts or superstitions, but they found themselves in the minority. Hard evidence of healed children stood against their fears. It was difficult to argue with the sight of a boy or girl walking and laughing when yesterday they had been wheelchair-bound. In some cases, skeptics even became believers after witnessing a healing. One memorable instance was when the very same park security guard who had once tried to drag Ivie away came to seek her help. His own granddaughter had been born with a congenital condition that left her unable to walk. The man approached Desmond humbly, hat literally in hand, and apologized profusely for his behavior in the past. With tears in his eyes, he pleaded for Ivie's aid. Remembering how roughly he had treated her, he half expected Ivie to refuse. But Ivie didn't hesitate. She gave that little girl the gift of walking after just 2 gentle sessions. The transformation in the old security guard was profound. He became one of Ivie's staunchest public defenders, quick to silence any insult to her name. "I saw the grace in her with my own eyes," he would say. "She's doing God's work." As her reputation grew, there were invitations and offers that came too. A prominent hospital in Abuja sent a letter proposing to fund research into her abilities and set up a special clinic for her. A foreign news crew from London requested an interview to feature her story internationally. Even a government official reached out discreetly to thank her for what she was doing, hinting at a possible national honor if she continued her work. Desmond and Ivie discussed these opportunities at length around the dining table with Marina, who was now a lively 15-year-old and Ivie's biggest cheerleader. Marina thought Ivie should share her gift with the whole world. "Imagine how many people could be healed if everyone knew and you could travel everywhere," she said brightly. But Desmond was more cautious. He looked at Ivie with the concern of a father. "Going too public might invite unwanted pressure," he warned. "There are people who might not have the best intentions. Some might want to exploit your gift, or others might start demanding miracles as if you owe it to them. You're still young and you should have a say in how your life goes." Ivie was thoughtful. She knew there was truth in both perspectives. Her heart yearned to help as many people as possible. Each story of a person suffering whom she might aid tugged at her. Yet she also valued her freedom and safety. She did not want to become a spectacle or a tool in someone else's hands. "Maybe we can find a middle path," she said one evening, stirring a cup of tea. "We can expand slowly, perhaps create a small healing center here in Lagos where people can come to me. That way I wouldn't have to travel too far or expose myself alone. We could also set up guidelines, like I only treat a certain number of cases each week so I don't exhaust myself, and always with doctors present. And if media wants to cover it, maybe we allow just a little, enough to let those in need know where to find me, but not so much that it becomes overwhelming." Desmond nodded, impressed with her maturity. "That sounds reasonable. We could even formalize it into a foundation, the Ivie Foundation perhaps, focused on helping paralyzed people. I can fund it, and it would give us a structure to handle requests and logistics. That way, it's not all on you personally fielding every call or visit." Over the next year, that is exactly what they did. The Okafor family, with the help of Dr. Adeyemi and a couple of other supportive professionals, set up a modest clinic space in a wing of a local children's hospital. It wasn't advertised with great fanfare. Rather, information was quietly passed to doctors around the country that if they had patients, especially children with paralysis or mobility disorders that defied conventional treatment, they could refer them to this clinic for a chance at a special therapy. In truth, anyone who paid attention knew that the special therapy was Ivy's gift, but framing it in clinical terms helped keep sensationalism at bay. The day the little clinic opened, Ivy was nearly 18. She stood at the doorway beneath a simple sign that read St. Mary's Pediatric Neurotherapy Center in partnership with the Ivy Foundation. It was a small way to publicly acknowledge her work, but it still made her blush to see her name on a sign. Marina elbowed her playfully. "You better get used to seeing your name everywhere, sister. You're basically a superhero now," she joked. Patients began to come from all over Nigeria and even neighboring countries seeking the girl healer. The clinic schedule filled up with appointments. Ivy kept to her limits, doing perhaps 1 or 2 healings a day on 3 days of the week, so she could rest and also finish her schooling. Desmond's foundation covered all costs, so the treatment remained free. Families who could afford it sometimes donated, but many patients were from humble backgrounds and they were never charged a penny. With the clinic's establishment, Ivy's work inevitably attracted more public attention. Journalists wrote cautiously optimistic articles about Lagos's miracle girl and the incredible outcomes reported. Unlike years ago, when such talk might have drawn backlash, the tone of these stories was largely positive. They featured interviews with doctors who had witnessed the healings and with families whose lives were changed. And because Ivy operated out of a hospital wing with the blessing of the medical community, that stamp of legitimacy reassured many who might have otherwise been skeptical. One sunny afternoon, after finishing a successful session helping a teenage boy regain strength in his legs, Ivy stepped out of the clinic to find a small crowd gathered. To her surprise, it was not a crowd of protest or prying journalists, but rather a spontaneous gathering of well-wishers. Children she had healed walking hand in hand with their parents, and other supporters holding up banners that read, "Thank you, Ivy," and "Our hero." As she appeared, the crowd clapped and cheered warmly. Ivy flushed with emotion and ducked her head humbly, but Marina, who was by her side, nudged her forward. "Go on, take a bow or something," Marina laughed. So Ivy gave a little wave and the applause grew. A familiar figure stepped forward from the crowd. It was the fruit seller woman from the park, the same one who years ago had whispered that Ivy was a witch. The woman held out a garland of fresh flowers. With tears in her eyes, she gently placed it around Ivy's neck. "Child," the fruit seller said, her voice trembling, "years ago I misjudged you. We all did. Today I see how wrong we were. You have brought only light and healing. May God bless you always." Ivy felt her throat tighten with gratitude and a touch of sadness for the scared girl she used to be. She reached out and embraced the older woman. "Thank you," Ivy whispered. In that hug was forgiveness and understanding, two people who had moved beyond fear to acceptance. Scenes like this became more common. Everywhere Ivy went, those who once might have avoided her now showed respect. Neighbors who once scowled at the mention of witchcraft now crossed the street just to shake her hand and say well done. Parents taught their children about her in stories at bedtime, not as a figure of dread, but as an example of kindness and courage. By age 20, Ivy's name was known throughout the country. She had completed her schooling and dedicated herself full-time to her healing mission. The government of Nigeria formally recognized her contributions with a national honor for humanitarian service. On the day of the award ceremony, she stood modestly in the presidential villa in Abuja, dressed in a simple but elegant traditional attire that Marina helped her choose, and received a medal and a plaque. The citation read, "To Miss Ivy Osaigbo for exceptional service to the nation and humanity, using a God-given gift to restore hope to the hopeless." The applause that day was thunderous, and among the attendees in the hall were people from all walks of life: doctors, lawmakers, market women, religious leaders, some of whom once had been skeptics, all now united in admiration for the young woman. As Ivy gave her short acceptance speech, she didn't speak of magic or science specifically. She spoke from her heart about understanding. She said fear comes from not understanding one another. "I hope my journey shows that what we fear at first might turn out to be a great blessing when we open our hearts. I was once a little girl alone and feared, but all along I just wanted to help. I'm thankful to everyone who gave me a chance and stood by me. This award to me is a sign of how far we have all come together when we replace fear with love." Her words earned a standing ovation. Though the fame and honors were meaningful, Ivy remained humble. She often spent her evenings writing in a journal by the window of her room back in Lagos in Nigeria, reflecting on the people she met and helped each week. She never let the glowing news articles or lofty praises get to her head. In her mind, she was still the same girl who talked to spirits under a tree, guided by something greater than herself to do what was right. Despite all the accolades and the busy days at the clinic, Ivy's heart often carried her back to where it all began. One quiet weekend, she decided to visit the city park on Lagos Island, the very place where years ago she had slept under a mango tree and first crossed paths with Marina and Desmond. It had been a long time since she had last been there. Life had swept her up and away, but she had never forgotten that old tree or the lessons it taught her. Marina insisted on coming along, of course. "You think I'd miss a chance to relive our story?" she quipped, swinging the keys to the car. Now that both girls were young adults and Marina had her driver's license, she loved chauffeuring her famous sister around when security allowed it. Desmond, a bit protective even now, sent one discreet bodyguard to keep an eye from a distance, just in case any of her zealous fans recognized Evie. But Evie kept a low profile, dressed in simple jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. To any stranger, she looked like just another young woman out for a stroll. When they arrived at the park, Evie felt a flutter in her chest. Some things had changed. There were new benches, a fresh coat of paint on the playground, and the fountain had been restored so that it gleamed in the sun. But much was the same. The wide lawns, the clusters of people relaxing, vendors selling roasted corn and ice lollies, children chasing each other on the paths. It was as if the intervening years had folded in on themselves, and she was glimpsing a scene from her past. Evie's eyes scanned the area until she saw it, the old mango tree, still standing tall and broad at the edge of the park. Its leaves rustled gently in the breeze, as if waving to her. She and Marina walked towards it side by side. As they neared the tree, a small commotion caught their attention. A boy, perhaps 10 years old, grimy and barefoot, was being scolded harshly by a street vendor near the base of the tree. The vendor had his hand latched onto the boy's thin arm and was yelling, "Thief! You think you can steal my plantain chips and run? I'll teach you a lesson." The boy struggled, his eyes wide with fear, clutching a half-eaten packet of stolen chips. A few onlookers began to gather, some murmuring disapproval. It was a scene Evie recognized all too well. The ragged child, the angry adult, the crowd ready to judge. Her heart clenched at the sight. Without hesitating, Evie stepped forward. "Excuse me, please," she interjected in a calm but firm voice. "Let the boy go." The vendor, a stout man with sweat beading on his forehead, turned to glare at the interloper. "Who are you? This boy is a thief. He stole from me. These street kids are all trouble," he spat, maintaining his grip on the trembling child. Marina stepped up beside Evie, but Evie gently motioned for her to let her handle it. She looked the vendor in the eye. "I'll pay for whatever he took. Here." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a few crisp naira notes, far exceeding the price of the snack. She held them out to the man. He looked startled, eyeing the money and then looking at Evie again more carefully. Perhaps he recognized her face at that moment, or perhaps it was simply the gentle authority in her demeanor, but his anger faltered. Slowly, he released the boy's arm and took the money. "You shouldn't encourage them," he muttered, though not unkindly now. "They cause trouble because no one disciplines them." Evie didn't argue with him. She simply offered a polite thanks for his understanding. The crowd that had begun to form dispersed when they saw the situation diffused. The vendor, after a moment's hesitation, even handed the rest of the packet of chips to the boy. "Here, finish it," he said, gruffly, perhaps feeling a twinge of guilt. The boy stood there bewildered, free now, but unsure whether to run or stay. He glanced between the vendor and Evie. Up close, Evie could see how thin he was, all elbows and knees beneath an oversized, dirty shirt. His face was smudged with dirt, and a recent bruise marred his left cheek. This child had clearly been through hard times, much like she had once. "What's your name?" Evie asked softly, crouching a little to be on his level. "Emeka," the boy mumbled, avoiding her eyes. He looked as if he expected to be struck or shouted at any moment. "It's okay, Emeka," she said, her voice as gentle as the breeze through the mango leaves. "Are you alone? Where are your parents?" Emeka sniffed and shrugged. "No mama, no papa," he said, in a mix of English and pidgin, confirming what Evie suspected. He was an orphan surviving on the streets. "I was just hungry. I didn't mean..." His sentence trailed off as he tried to hold back tears of relief and exhaustion. Evie exchanged a glance with Marina, whose eyes were already shining with sympathy. That glance held a world of unspoken understanding. In that moment, They both knew why fate had brought them to the park that day. Evie smiled kindly at the boy and gently placed a hand on his thin shoulder. "I understand, Emeka. I've been hungry like that before too." Her words made him finally look up into her eyes, puzzled. Could this well-dressed young woman ever have known his pain? Marina chimed in softly. "You're not in trouble. Don't be scared." Emeka's tense posture relaxed slightly. Emboldened, Evie continued. "Would you like to come with us, Emeka? We can get you some proper food and maybe a place to stay if you want. You don't have to be alone." The boy stared in disbelief. His experience had taught him that when something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Why would you help me?" he asked wearily. Evie thought for a second and simply said, "Because someone once helped me, just like this." Behind them, the old mango tree swayed as if nodding. Emeka looked at Evie, then at Marina, then back at the mango tree's broad canopy that offered cool shade from the afternoon sun. Finally, he gave the tiniest nod. A warm smile broke over Evie's face. "All right, let's go get you something to eat." She took Emeka's hand in one of hers, and with her other hand, she reached out to touch the trunk of the mango tree, her silent way of greeting an old friend. The bark felt familiar under her fingertips, rough and strong. Marina quickly ran to buy some jollof rice and grilled chicken from a food stand nearby, knowing the boy needed a real meal, not just snacks. They sat on a bench under the mango tree as Emeka wolfed down the food like a starving kitten. Evie and Marina kept him company, chatting gently with him between bites, learning more about his life. He had drifted into Lagos months ago, escaping an abusive situation with distant relatives in another city. The streets had been cruel. He'd been beaten by older street boys, chased by market bards, which explained the bruise on his cheek, and had known more nights of hunger than full stomachs. As Emeka spoke, Evie's memory stirred. She remembered nights curled up under this very tree with an empty belly, talking to the darkness because no one else would listen. She remembered the sting of being called witch and chased. Those memories were no longer painful, but they grounded her, keeping her compassionate and humble. When Emeka finished eating, Marina offered her water bottle and a handkerchief to clean his face. He looked better already, a bit of color returning to his cheeks. "Evie," Marina said softly, "maybe Emeka can stay at the foundation's shelter, at least for tonight, and then we'll figure something out." Evie nodded. The Evie Foundation had grown over the years to include not just the healing clinic, but also outreach programs, one of which was a small shelter for homeless children run by a trusted colleague. "Yes, that's a good idea. Emeka, would you like to come with us? We have a safe place where you can sleep with other kids and kind adults to look after you. And you can have meals every day. We can help you go to school if you want, or find your family if they are out there and safe." She didn't want to overwhelm him, but she wanted to offer everything she could. Emeka's eyes widened again in disbelief at this litany of possibilities. Slowly, he nodded once more. Then, as if finally allowing himself to believe, he said quietly, "Yes, please." It was decided. The bodyguard who'd been watching from a discreet distance was informed to bring the car around. As they stood to leave, Evie took one last look at the mango tree. A flood of emotions washed over her. Gratitude, nostalgia, and an almost sacred reverence. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around the broad trunk in a gentle hug. It might have looked strange to passers-by, but to Evie it felt perfectly natural. Under her breath, she whispered in Bini, "Imen Obiedo," meaning "thank you, ancestor of the land." A soft gust of wind rustled the leaves above, and Evie felt as if the tree were responding with a warm embrace of its own. Marina, holding Emeka's hand now, smiled at the sight. She knew Evie's connection with nature ran deep and respected it wholly. Emeka simply watched curiously, not fully understanding why the lady was hugging a tree, but sensing no harm in it. The late afternoon sun cast golden dapples through the branches as the three of them walked away from the mango tree, Marina and Evie flanking little Emeka, who carried the remaining plantain chips in one hand and held on to Evie with the other. He glanced back once at the tree as they headed to the car, perhaps wondering what it meant to Evie. In the car, as they drove Emeka towards the shelter that would become his new temporary home, Evie felt a peaceful contentment. She had returned to the place of her hardest days and found there a chance to pass on the kindness she'd received. Life had come full circle in a beautiful way. Late that night, back at home, Ivy sat in her bedroom by the open window. The house was quiet. Marina had gone to bed after excitedly planning how they would integrate Emeka into their family's care. The stars above Lagos sparkled, and a gentle breeze carried the distant sound of traffic mixed with night crickets. Ivy closed her eyes and let the memories of the day wash over her. She thought of Emeka's shy smile as they left him at the shelter, safe and fed. She thought of the mango tree standing solid and wise in the park. In her mind's eye, she was once again the little girl curled up among the tree's roots, staring at the night sky in loneliness. She remembered the hunger, the fear, and the whispering wind that had been her only companion. How much had changed since then? Ivy opened her eyes and gazed around her room. Photographs adorned one wall, she and Marina in graduation gowns, a snapshot of her and Desmond at a clinic opening, group photos with children she'd helped who now stood tall and grinning. On a shelf was the plaque she'd received from the nation, and beside it a framed drawing gifted by a child, a crayon depiction of Ivy with angel wings. These tokens of love and respect were things she never could have imagined in her darkest nights under that tree. Yet, Ivy did not feel prideful looking at them. She felt thankful. Her life had been a tapestry of kindness from unexpected places. A wealthy father and a paralyzed girl had trusted a strange homeless child. A skeptical doctor had opened his mind to the unexplainable. Even nature itself had guided and guarded her, from the crow that chased away bullies to the breeze that gave her strength in healing. Every step of the way, what could have been curses turned into blessings. She rested her chin on the windowsill, letting the night air caress her face. In the garden below, the moonlit leaves of a young fruit tree, an offspring of the old mango, which Desmond had arranged to plant there, shimmered. Ivy softly hummed the familiar lullaby of her childhood, the tune she used to sing to wounded birds and to frightened hearts, including her own. The melody carried her back in time and brought tears to her eyes, not of sorrow, but of deep gratitude. Softly, she began to speak, as if addressing the breeze, or perhaps the spirits that she knew were listening. Grandmother, I hope you see me now. You taught me our gift was meant for good, even if the world feared it. You were right. The world can learn, little by little. I'm living proof that the world fears what it doesn't understand, but also that fear can turn to understanding with patience and love. They call me a healer, but really, so many people helped heal the world around me. A gentle gust fluttered through the window, lifting a stray curl on her forehead, as if in answer. Ivy smiled, feeling a familiar, comforting presence. She imagined her grandmother's hand on her shoulder, the tree spirits humming along with her lullaby, the ancestors standing proudly behind her. She knew she was never truly alone. Her thoughts turned to the 3 moral lessons she held close to her heart. Kindness can indeed come from the most unexpected places. She had found it under a tree, from birds and breezes, in the eyes of a man who could have cast her aside, but instead took her in, and now, in herself, reaching out to a boy named Emeka. Never judge people by their appearance. How many times had that lesson played out? She, the witch girl in rags, was in truth a force for good. Emeka, the thief, was just a hungry child needing compassion. Time and again, she had learned that one must look deeper to see the true soul. And gifts are blessings, not curses. For so long, she had been made to feel afraid of her own ability, but it was a blessing, one she was entrusted to use for others. Every child who walked because of her gift affirmed that truth. As she recounted these lessons, Ivy felt a wave of peace. She knew her journey was far from over. There were many more people to help, many more minds to open, but she also knew she would face the future without fear. After all, she had seen the best of what humanity could be: loving, accepting, and kind, triumph over ignorance and fear. Rising from her chair, Ivy prepared to lie down to sleep. But before she did, she took one last look at the night sky. A single star twinkled especially bright above, and she found herself murmuring a quiet prayer, one of thanks for all the guidance she'd received, and one of hope that she could be the guide for others in return. She turned off the light and climbed into her bed. The room fell into gentle darkness, illuminated only by moonbeams. As Ivy pulled the soft covers over herself, she felt as safe and loved as she had that very first night in this home years ago. More so even, because now she fully understood her place in the world. Her eyes drifted to the corner where, propped near the window, stood a walking stick that once belonged to Marina, a reminder of the miracle that had started everything. Next to it leaned an old, knobbly branch that Ivy had kept from the mango tree, picked up on a visit long ago, a piece of the tree that had sheltered her. Two symbols, one of a past of pain overcome, and one of a refuge that gave her strength. Ivy closed her eyes, breathing a final content sigh. In her mind, she saw herself under the mango tree again, but this time she was not cold or scared. She was kneeling to comfort a crying child or offering a hand to someone who had fallen. She was exactly where she needed to be. And as she hovered on the edge of sleep, one last thought floated through her, clear and bright as that shining star. I will never forget the days I slept under the tree. Those hard days shaped her, taught her compassion and resilience, and gave rise to everything she had become. They were the roots that grounded her as she spread her branches to give others shade. With that thought resting gently in her heart, Ivy drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep, at peace with her past, present, and future, under the eternal watch of the spirits and stars. The story teaches that the world often fears what it does not understand, but true courage comes from choosing kindness instead of judgment. Ivy shows that someone's appearance or background does not define their worth, and even the most unexpected person can carry a powerful blessing. By opening their hearts, the people who once feared her learned that compassion heals more than anything else, and that gifts, no matter how strange they may seem, are meant to help, not to harm. So, my dear friends, our story comes to an end. Thank you for spending your time with us today on Amaka's Folktales. We truly appreciate your love, support, and kindness towards this channel. If you enjoyed this story, please support us by liking this video, sharing it with others, and dropping your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, kindly subscribe to Amaka's Folktales and turn on the notification bell so you would always be the first to watch our latest stories, folktales, life lessons, and emotional adventures. Your support helps this channel grow and keeps these beautiful stories coming your way. Until we meet again in another interesting and unforgettable story, may happiness never leave your home. Stay blessed, stay peaceful, and take good care of yourself. Goodbye, besties.